For our students, what I tell them is that instructional designers will never be replaced by AI. That seems to be a common misconception with our students. So our job will not be replaced. Our job will be synthesized and integrated and easier in some ways because of artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence still gets it wrong. Garbage in, garbage out.
Hello and welcome back to UNA Talks. I'm your host, Lee Taylor. Today, my guest is Dr. Natasha Lindsey. Dr. Lindsey is the full professor of Instructional Technology and Design for the College of Education and Human Sciences here at the University of North Alabama. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And full disclosure, you are my teacher. So I'm in the MSITD program here at UNA, and Dr. Lindsey does a great job. All of my classes are online, of course, but we, of course, also get to work together a lot and talk about the program and talk about promoting it and things like that, which is really fun. So thanks for being here. I wanted everyone to just hear a little bit of your background in education and sort of how instructional technology and design found its way into your life and how you've become sort of a champion for it here at UNA.
Sure. Believe it or not, I came to the University of North Alabama as an undergrad student. Fell in love working in administration. And when I had to select a degree, I picked business, actually, because I was one of those kids that had no clue what I wanted to do when I grew up. Mm-hmm. And so business allowed for the most opportunity is what I saw it as. So I was a business marketing major. When it came time to graduate, I had no clue what I was going to do, and it turned out that the Office of Financial Aid had an opening for a scholarship coordinator.
Okay.
So I started my time at UNA in administration as that scholarship coordinator. One of the benefits of working for UNA was that I could work on a grad degree. So I worked on my MBA. And by the time I was finished, I was the loan coordinator and the associate director for financial aid.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yes, one of the professors in the program, actually the department chair of marketing management at the time, Dr. Keith Absher, reached out to me and he said, "Have you ever thought about teaching college?" No, sir. He's like, "Well, you're about 6 hours shy of being eligible to teach at our undergraduate level. Would you consider?" And so he had me take a couple of classes, got me eligible to begin teaching undergrad classes in the College of Business, and I fell in love with it unexpectedly. It turned out they ended up having an opening.
Yeah.
And so with that opening, the prefaces was always, hey, if somebody with a PhD applies, you wouldn't even be considered, but market's fierce. We don't pay as well at that time. This was 28 years ago. And so you might have a shot. PhD did not apply. I was able to come in as an instructor. Mm-hmm. And I worked with Dr. Gerald Crawford, who actually at that time, to tell you how old I actually am, we were doing VHS correspondence courses for online, cool. Yeah. And then DVD. This was when the internet was really starting to take off and get around, and Dr. Crawford came to me and he said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to retire." He's like, "I feel like you could pick up the technology with this. Would you consider working with me? I'll teach you front page. We'll develop a website for our principles marketing course. You develop half of it. I'll develop the other half. We'll share our resources." And so that's how it all began.
Yeah.
So I spent 10 years teaching in the College of Business. And over that time, I went from front page to WebCT to Blackboard to Angel. Mm-hmm. And basically...
these are all the older LMS learning management systems that UNA used to operate on for online learning. Yep.
Right. Yep. And somehow or another, I could understand what the tech guys were saying and translate it into English.
Yeah.
And I still don't talk the tech talk, but faculty started coming to me for help.
Yeah.
And so that's how it all began. If you want to live in higher education in a permanent position, you do need a doctorate at some point in time. So before I left the College of Business, I was working on my doctorate, and the idea was I was a wife, a mom. I had a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. The business programs are 100% full time on campus, face to face type programs. But there was a program at the University of Alabama called Instructional Leadership with an emphasis in technology.
Okay.
And I thought, that's really what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent 2 years in courses, program, material. We did a lot of online learning, designing for online learning. Very rarely did I have to go to campus, which worked really well for my family.
Mm-hmm.
I did have to do the 6-hour or the 2-semester minimum 6-hour residency. So I did spend the summer that Tuscaloosa had the terrible tornado, subletting an apartment without internet or TV or any of those things. So I spent all my time on campus trying to complete that degree program. Right as I was working on my dissertation, the provost at the time came to me and he said, "Would you do what you do for the College of Business for the university?" And that's how the first instructional designer at UNA was born. So I left the College of Business, went to Educational Technology, had the opportunity to work with faculty, and it was really a hearts and minds approach, almost like backdoor grassroots marketing, because a lot of faculty at the time felt like, oh, you're Big Brother, you're trying, academic freedom, what are you doing? And the College of Nursing at UNA was already online with their RN to MSN program. They were one of the first that really embraced this.
What year would this have been that we were kind of starting to really fully integrate to online learning?
Probably 2012 is when I actually started my process.
Yeah.
We were probably 2008. Somewhere through there, 2007, 2008.
And that's really where I feel like a lot of schools, even much bigger than UNA, were sort of at in that process. If I remember correctly, and just kind of looking at, you had degrees that were fully online, but that was pretty progressive at the time. So it was sort of trying to help the university catch up to that earmark. Yeah.
It was. So I started explaining to the College of Nursing what I could do and how I could do, and I had a few take a chance on me, if you will. And they got to where they started talking to other people, and they were like, "Oh, you need to go see Natasha Lindsey. She helped me with this or this," and so word started to get out. In 2012, we joined Quality Matters, which is the most recognized set of standards for online learning in really the world. They are a U.S.-based company. They're not for profit, but it's really about design by faculty for faculty, so we have that unique benefit that in order to be a part of that process, you need to be actively teaching online. And they're the ones who establish the rules. They're the ones who follow the rules. They're the ones who evaluate other people for following the rules, all of those good things.
Yeah.
And so I was very fortunate that eventually picked up. We started adding instructional designers to the university. I think before it was said and done, we had 5 university-wide, and then we have some sporadically throughout the university now as well, like in individual colleges that go through this process and follow how it works. So I had the opportunity from ground up to kind of help establish those guidelines with Mr. John McGee and Educational Technology Services, and develop the process and the program for designing quality assurance and online courses and teaching faculty how to make that work. After we had our established plan, things were going well, I started reaching out to the College of Ed and saying, hey, I've done this for the university for a while, about 10 years, and a little over 10 years, maybe 12. Could we consider a master's degree? And initially I was approached with, let's try a certificate. And our provost at the time, Ross Alexander, said, oh, let's try a micro-credential, which is that short program that you get some basic training in. So we did that. 2020 came, COVID hit, and I got a phone call and it said, "Will you fast track a master's
Yeah.
degree?"
Yeah, exactly.
So we launched in 2021,
Hmm.
going strong. We've had 57 graduates, and we have students, or alumni, I should say, that work for the Department of Defense, for Apple, for Simmons University, for the Texas A&M, for private companies. The list just
Yeah.
goes on. We've been very blessed with our students, with their success, and with the opportunities they've been granted at the end
Yeah.
of the program. So that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah. Well, it couldn't have come at a better time, obviously, because online learning overnight became the norm and the necessity for just viability of education. Of course, during COVID, and a lot of teachers, or I should say, instructors and professors, primarily, but really teachers all across the world, all of a sudden realized that they were kind of shorthanded on the skill set of migrating content and navigating the teaching experience through the internet. That was a real challenge for a lot of people. So it's really great that we had instructional designers on campus to sort of integrate that, and we had a program to grow that. Really, all around, it seems like it was kind of the perfect time for that to emerge.
It was a distinct blessing in that, in a time when schools were losing enrollment, losing classes, losing professors, our enrollment grew.
Yeah.
So we really did have faculty who were well trained across the board. We had the ability to help them very quickly transition. And I'll be real honest, when it came to the transition for COVID, we had about a week's notice that it was happening. The week before spring break, we kind of knew we might not be back after. We set up an emergency area in the library, stayed there early morning, late in the evening, had all of our tech folks, all of our instructional designers, and it was a come get help. We'll practice, we'll test, we'll do whatever you need to do. So we set up a triage area for the campus.
Yeah.
And I really thank the leadership and the opportunities that we had, because I believe that's what maintained us during what was a very difficult time for many colleges and universities.
Yeah, and not only maintained, but we grew in a lot of ways. And so just for the uninitiated, for who are listening and watching, what does an instructional designer really do? Like, if you had to explain it sort of in a 30-second elevator pitch, so to speak.
That is the most common asked question.
Sure.
When you say instructional technology and design or instructional designer, this is the person who is trained in pedagogy, andragogy, like adult learning even, and technology. So we can help you take your content that you would teach, say, in a traditional environment and bring it to life online. So we look at how you're interacting with the students, what the students are able to do. Is the content aligned with the objectives of the course? Are they getting that practice opportunity? Are they getting to demonstrate mastery? So we really look at we're really in the business of educating others. So we
Educating educators a lot of the time.
a lot of times, yes.
Yeah.
Anybody in the business of educating others, whether it be corporate trainers or military or what have you, if you have a training and development area, this program teaches you how to prepare those people to assist others and bring content to life. The idea behind it is to ensure that your learners or your professional people who are being educated are getting the opportunity to interact with others, to interact with that professor or trainer, and interact with the content in a fun and engaging way.
Pedaling back a little bit, all the way back to sort of your, time as a staff member and getting your MBA, like, what was it about? You said you clearly had like a proclivity to like integrating, technology into education at a time where there's a lot more barriers of entry. You seem to navigate those really well. I mean, the fact that you're doing instruction through DVDs and mailing them out and stuff, I mean, nowadays we laugh about that, but if you wanted video instruction, that's how you had to do it. It wasn't that long ago that's kind of what that looked like. So you were clearly ahead of the curve on that. But what about that world, just, do you feel like appealed to you necessarily, like, as far as what your goals were and the things you're passionate about, what you enjoyed? why do you think that intersection happened so early for you? And obviously you're still really passionate about it today. So what about your sort of core values do you think that instructional design taps into?
Honestly, I was very young at the time. In fact, when I would walk into the classroom, students would sometimes mistake me for a student.
Yeah.
I have been known in my younger years to sit at the front of the classroom and look around and everybody talk about who's, at the time, Miss Lindsay, and then say, oh, wait, that's me. I guess I should get up because I looked like them. I remembered what it was like to be a student. And I remembered thinking, oh, I wish a professor would do this for me or do that for me. And so everything I think about when I think about even the program today is, what do I wish somebody had done for me? And so I think thinking from the student perspective, for me, that's the big thing: student success, student perspective. I'm not good at my job unless my students succeed. I mean, I'm really not good at my job unless they do well. And so even in my doctoral program, which I absolutely adored and loved, I got in the real world and it was like, oh, wait, nobody's ever mentioned accessibility to me. I don't know what that entails. And I learned all of a sudden I had this major gap in my education. And so I had to start figuring out, okay, what does this mean for the person who's colorblind? What does this mean for the person who's hard of hearing? What does this mean for a second language learner? All of these different things that I had not considered. And so I guess for me, in order for me to have that type A personality to be successful, I need others to be successful around me. And so I measure my worth as a professor from how well my students do. And that mindset, I think, is probably what encouraged me early and has kept me engaged for so long.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your student success earlier, so I think it sounds like your KPIs are lining up pretty well with your performance. So who do you see a lot of in this program? I mean, it's kind of anybody and everybody, but who are some of the more typical or more traditional students that are entering into MSITD?
Well, one group in particular will be your K-12 educators. They benefit from the master's pay bump by going into this program, but it also offers versatility in what they can do with the degree. So if you're thinking additional trajectories, if you're thinking second career, broadening your horizons to see how far it can actually take you, this is a master's degree that gets you what you need for the K-12 environment, but also allows you to explore additional opportunities that might be outside of the classroom. When I think about it, the tech industry does come to mind, although you do not require a tech background to learn the content in this program. There are a lot of individuals who have computer backgrounds or technology backgrounds and understand how things work, but not necessarily the best way to put them all together.
Or to translate that for somebody who, because instruction is going to be, how do you translate the stuff that maybe comes naturally to you or you've been given as part of your background to somebody who's learning it for the first time? That can be a real challenge whenever you're, around technology in general.
Right. And military is pretty popular. Government positions are pretty popular. Business, any walk of business is pretty popular in our program. It's been really interesting to see the diverse group of individuals. We've had some associate provost. We've actually had full professors at universities with doctorates come back and get the degree. So when I say we are a mixed bag, I really mean we're a mixed bag. It's very interesting to watch them interact with one another, learn from one another, and see these diverse backgrounds come into play. Just because it's so unique and they really enjoy this idea of learning from different people.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying our conversation with Dr. Lindsey. I know I am. I just wanted to take a quick break to thank the University of North Alabama, who's the sponsor, of course, of this podcast. And I want to point you toward una.edu/online. That's una.edu/online. We want you to visit our website so you can look at all of our online programs, including our Masters of Science in Instructional Technology and Design that we're talking about today. But there's a lot of really great programs that we offer that are going to help you accomplish your goals, whether that's in your career or your curiosity, whatever that may be. You can find that at una.edu/online. And you can also learn about our scholarships. You can ask us questions, talk to our program coordinators, our recruiters, whoever you want to talk to. You can start that conversation right there from that page. And follow us on social media if you're not already: Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, now that we're doing this series and other cool stuff on YouTube. So find us on there. And now we'll get back to our conversation with Dr. Lindsey. So every day you're teaching teachers how to teach in a lot of ways. Teachers how to teach online. So Instructional Technology and Design is like you said, it's just this incredibly multifaceted program because online learning affects every corner of the world essentially at this point. Whether it's corporate instruction or in the classroom, but basically everyone's learning what they need to learn for their jobs and for their situations on the internet. And somebody's got to make sure that they're getting what they need and that they're getting the results that they need. That's where instructional designers essentially fall in, and that's why it's so multifaceted. But for a lot of folks, online learning or going from sort of the traditional classroom to moving to online is still kind of a new experience. So what are some of the drawbacks and maybe conversely the advantages pedagogically, right, as a teacher to teaching online that you run into a lot and that you have to answer a lot of questions around or that you think about a lot?
So I'll talk about it from the student's perspective because to me, again, that's what really matters. In an online environment, students have the flexibility to work at their convenience. So it's possible to work full time and go to school. It's possible to be a mom or a dad and make it to sporting activities or dance recitals or whatever it might be. It's possible to take care of an elderly parent when you are in that online environment. One of the challenges that I think occurs in the online environment is ensuring that the students are emotionally bonded together. In a traditional classroom, students are going to sit by one another, they're going to get to know each other, they're going to talk before the professor starts, they may create study groups. So there are mechanisms that as the teacher, I want to put those things in place to bond my students together. So we look for opportunities for them to engage with one another, to work together on projects, to meet with each other, and to grow that bond. And it's actually been kind of a joy to see when we approach graduation, the students will come to campus and walk, and we always try to schedule a time, and they're hugging each other and happy to meet each other and see each other.
So most of them, it's for the first time they've met in person. They've been working together for years, but yeah.
Right. And so it's nice to see that they are actually bonded to one another through this process.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think in my experience, I'll just speak, candidly from being a student in this program, that I'm sort of the outlier in my groups typically because I don't have an education background really at all, and I'm used to that working at a university because I'm always around educators, and I don't, I'm kind of coming at it from a different angle, but the collaboration and the group projects and all those things, that is instructional design. We're of course learning that, but we're experiencing quality instructional design at the same time. So we're sort of putting into practice really what we're learning, but we're also learning it in real time through our classes. So it's really fascinating to see that you have to sort of facilitate that. That doesn't just happen. People don't just start chatting with each other and things like that online. In a classroom, they might sit down, hey, what's your name? My name's so-and-so. And, we take that for granted, but in the online environment, you have to sort of nudge and facilitate and sometimes make it a requirement or whatever it is. But that's the natural byproduct of that, was whenever you give people that experience and they take the opportunity, then you start to see them work together and they benefit from it in a lot of ways. So that's just good decision making as a result. Yeah.
Well, and that's also very important from the standpoint of real world application. When these individuals graduate from the program, they're going to be working in teams. They're going to be working with diverse individuals. They have to be able to provide constructive, specific, measurable, sensitive, and balanced feedback to someone. So it's very important for you to be able to have a collegial conversation with them, identifying areas for improvement without criticizing the person who created the content. And so that becomes very important as well. So we're consistently looking for ways to foster engagement in a way that is constructive and emulates what would happen after the degree in the real world.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like you could speak to this way better. Talking about the, I guess, how to navigate around biases, right? And how to navigate around not only informational biases, but political or whatever mindset that people have. A lot of this course has been around sort of how to navigate that professionally and how to help your students that you're instructing as a result of being an instructional designer or whatever course you're developing avoid those obstacles or avoid those pitfalls, rather, not obstacles but pitfalls of misinformation or confirmation bias or all of these things. It's been really cool. So talk about the importance of that in an online learning setting because it is so hyper individualized. How do you put up those guardrails to help people implement these best practices?
One of my favorite assignments in one of the classes, and I don't remember if you've had the class yet or not, is a transformational learning experience. We take a topic that everybody knows, the idea of learning styles. You learn best visually, auditorily, kinetically. There are different ways that people learn best. Mm-hmm. Scientifically, that theory has never been proven, yet people believe it on a regular basis. So we created an activity that asked them to explain what they understand, what they know about learning styles, where their beliefs originated. And then we go to peer-reviewed journals and research and read. And then they come back and summarize what they found. Mm-hmm. And then we look at their beliefs and summarize what they found and decide, okay, what's right? Mm-hmm. And did we see a transformational change in belief based on research? So we're very big on even things like social media or content online videos. You've got to go check this content to see, is it real or is it not? Yeah. And that's getting better by the day, the fake content. Oh, yeah. So as an instructional designer, you have to somewhat learn to, I don't want to say not trust, but not trust everything you see. You have to investigate. You have to research.
A healthy skepticism is important whenever you're
absolutely
self-guiding your learning journey. Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things that's important. I also want to encourage my students to go back to original sources. So we don't like to use our primary sources. We don't like to use third, fourth party iterations of content. We want to go back and see what the original said. So we're constantly encouraging you to, what is it really? Form your own opinion. Let's be mindful of this. And that transformational experience allows for that to happen. And that's just one example of what we do. The other thing is, when we're looking, as an example, quality assurance, I have all of the students do peer reviews, and we have rules with peer reviews. You have to watch your language. You're not allowed to say words like you, because that puts the critique on the person, not the content. And so it's never about the person that we're working with. It's always about best practices. What are the practices? Stick with the standards. Don't deviate from the standards, because you want to foster and network relationships with colleagues. And if you can't do that, then you're going to burn bridges rather than foster the networks that you need to be successful. So we really think about tonality. We think about word choice. We think about the quality of content that we provide to people. As an example, if I told you, hey, all of your videos are missing closed caption, or some of your videos are missing things like closed captioning, it would be helpful if I told you this video titled this is missing closed captioning. I don't want to make you work harder than you have to. I want to give you quality feedback that will allow you to do what's best for the class, for the students, those kinds of things.
Yeah. It's emotional intelligence. was the term. I believe we did that exercise. If I have, it's probably been in a couple years, but I remember an exercise around that where I've like always been convinced that I'm a visual learner or whatever, and it's like okay, but like there's a lot of ways that we sort of perceive ourselves, or we think we're better communicators than we are. I think it's just kind of like that's kind of what I'm learning about myself, and not that we aren't all good communicators, but what makes a lot of sense to us, we have to consider. Well, where's the common ground that I'm communicating? It's not just about fitting it for that one person. It's about how do I say this in a way that's universally understood, that is not going to make someone put their guard up if it is critical or if it is has some critique involved, and how am I going to say it in a way that is objective to my point of view. So
Right.
it's like making it universal in every way, not just speaking it in a way that's communicative and like clear, right? Just hey, don't confuse anybody, but also don't say something that they could maybe misinterpret, or that's going to make them defensive, or that's going to it would naturally draw any defense out of somebody. And also don't say it in a way that has anything to do with you. Like be truly objective to the information and truly objective to the goal at hand.
Yes.
Which we often do that a whole lot. We integrate either our emotions or our biases into our responses, and we also maybe overly try to accommodate some things on the other side when it's either we're too apologetic or we're too rude. We really just need to think objectively about how we're communicating to our students and to one another in any of those settings. So I've taken that into the workplace, really well. And I'm somebody who I like to think I don't rub people the wrong way too often, but it's a lot easier to do than we realize. So it's a really cool vocabulary to sort of learn as we've gone, for sure. And I love how important that is to the instructional design process, because sometimes our teachers need help with that, so we can help maybe critique their, like, oh, hey, make sure that this is packaged sort of in a certain way that's going to make it more effective, or it's going to help you achieve your goal a little bit with your student. What do you think are some of the fears? We talked about AI earlier, and of course, because everyone's talking about it all the time because it affects everything right now, especially in the digital space. What are some of the fears and lack of equipment that were in the online learning space that you try to address in your courses, and that you're talking about, as far as how do we utilize generative AI ethically, but also how we're helping our students avoid the pitfalls of it, or using it as a crutch or things like that. What does that look like in the world, and I guess in 2025 in instructional design?
AI is better every day. It's better today than it was yesterday.
Yep.
I do think it is something that we have to be cognizant of. For our students, what I tell them is that instructional designers will never be replaced by AI. That seems to be a common misconception with our students. So our job will not be replaced. Our job will be synthesized and integrated and easier in some ways because of artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence still gets it wrong. Garbage in, garbage out. You have to know what to ask, how to ask, and how to evaluate what is returned to you when utilizing AI. So I think it's very important, and we do, especially in our master's degree, work with our students in a course to actually compare and contrast what is human generated versus what is AI generated. What are the differences? What are the pitfalls that you see? To be perfectly honest, AI still makes things up. So the professors who are worried, or the teachers who are worried that students are plagiarizing from AI.
Of course.
AI is going to make things up, and you're typically going to be able to see that. So while AI is wonderful in a lot of ways, it's also dangerous, but
Sure.
great power, great responsibility, if you want to talk that way. The idea that AI does show biases still, not as much as it once did. Fun examples of that is to look at couples from all the states that are AI generated. and see what AI thinks about how you should look based on where you're from.
Yeah. Oh wow.
We
Yeah.
also can still see in AI generated images sometimes things like noses. Other things are a little off. Sometimes you have multiple fingers. There's little weird things.
Yeah.
Now, I
That's
think that
quickly
will
going
be,
away. Yeah.
yes, I
Yeah.
think that will go away fairly quickly.
Yeah.
But the idea that AI does have a tendency to make things up. So if you ask for resources on a research paper, you better check every resource because they're probably not real.
Mm-hmm.
Now, by the same token, I would say, is wonderful for students when used appropriately. Brainstorming, understanding concepts in a more manageable way or an easier way, breaking down concepts into smaller chunks. AI, things like Grammarly, Turnitin, any of these processing tools that are going to help with the spelling, grammar, things like that. AI does a pretty good job of those things. So finding errors in your work, you're going to see AI do a wonderful job of that. When you talk about ethically, and again, I guess I'm addressing this from the student perspective, we want to see that students are transparent about the use of the tools that they utilize. So especially like here in UNA, you're not forbidden from using artificial intelligence, but you must be transparent about that usage and what the usage was. And there are compliance considerations for how you may use AI. Now, in our program, it's a little more fun. Sometimes we say, hey, go do this with AI,
Yeah,
and then
'cause that's part of the
analyze.
lesson. Yep.
Yeah, that's analyze the results.
Yep.
So
I just had that class. Yeah.
yeah. So in our program, we're a little bit different in that we really do want you to play with the tool. We really do want you to see if you can figure out what went well, what went wrong, and how to improve that process.
Yeah, if you're not literate around it, then you'll never really know how to navigate it. So if you completely prohibit people from engaging with it altogether, then you're not really doing them a lot of favors. But if you're not drawing guidelines, you're not doing yourself any favors either, of course. So it's an ongoing conversation in higher ed, of course, and in education in general around what does that look like. And I think it takes folks like yourself and folks who are in this field are gonna be really pivotal in helping us make good decisions around that, because you are so grounded as an instructional designer in the empathy with the student experience, critical thinking, all of the sort of those features, not just one area of specialty, but making sure that people kind of have access to all of that it's an inherently empathetic role in that sense. So I think it's going to be really helpful.
Well, and I mentioned that my students initially come in with a fear that AI will replace them.
Right.
And I said that it absolutely would not. What I would say is that instructional designers who are unable to competently use AI will be replaced with those who can.
Yeah. And that is true of every role that we're looking at, kind of across the spectrum of the professional field. Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to ask too, just what do you think as far as online instruction? What are some of the what are some of the most common, maybe underutilizations that you see as an instructional designer? Where the things that come naturally to you and the teachers come to you and say, I need your help with this because you seem to be able to connect the dots with technology and learning and teaching in a way that I think a lot of instructors have a hard time, or teachers maybe have a hard time doing, even though you're not like necessarily coding in the background. Like you said, you're not the most, how to translate that or maybe utilize technology online really effectively as a teacher. So what are some of the main things that teachers are still coming to you for, instructors still coming to you for, to help them sort of manage that? Like what seem to be the largest challenges?
The idea that professors live in their computer 24/7. So with technology, what you're actually going to find is that people expect you to respond immediately. And professors, just as students, have lives outside of the classroom. So there are a few tools that I recommend. One is announcements. I set up announcements for an entire semester at the beginning of the semester and do a date release. So every Sunday morning at 12:01 a.m., you get a friendly reminder from me of what needs to happen this week. It's very easy on my part. It's an efficiency thing, but it also reminds my students, hey, I'm here and I'm telling you what to do this week. So I really am engaged in this process. Another thing that I do, and it's a lot about professor engagement with the students, is to do final thoughts or wrap ups on every topic that we cover. I'm going to tell you what you did well, if there were areas of concern, any additional thoughts on a topic that you might want to investigate. I'm always going to wrap up every conversation, every assignment in a nice little bow and kind of tell you, hey, okay, now we're done with this. Let's move forward. Another thing that I would recommend is using grading rubrics to help with the grading process. The grading process is tedious, and even though I use grading rubrics, I also offer individualized feedback, especially on major assignments. My capstone students right now are in the middle of their portfolio, and they would attest to the fact that some of them got 9 and 10 pages of notes on how to improve their final product for the program so that they're ready to apply for jobs. So those are just little things. I will tell you that one time a professor sat in a professional development with me and kind of raised his hand and he said, I'm tired of sitting on my computer Saturday nights for my students to submit their exams, or maybe it was Sunday night. I really don't remember. And my question to him was, why'd you make it due then? So I give faculty and teachers permission to be kind to themselves.
Yeah.
If you don't want to work on the weekend, don't make assignments due on the weekend. Be sure there's a day after the weekend that allows the students to ask questions. They're welcome to work ahead, but so if weekends work for them, that's great. But don't make something due on a Saturday or Sunday if you don't want the stress of dealing with students on a Saturday or Sunday. Some of this is common sense, but it's just little tips and tricks. That I have a discussion board that's called Help, I Have a Question. This was the equivalent for me for a student sitting in the classroom and raising their hand and everybody hearing the answer. I wanted to emulate that in the online environment. I didn't want 50 emails if something was broken or wrong. So
And then you're having 50 separate conversations when you can just kind of have it all at one time.
Right. So what I do is I have my students go to the Help, I Have a Question board. And if something's broken, once they see that 1 or 2 people have already said it, don't freak out. That's on me. I also allow my students to answer each other's questions. So if a student can get to the answer before I can get to the answer, you're getting a faster result. And then I always answer those questions as well. But it's something that learning grace in the online environment as a teacher, learning that you do not have to be available 24/7. I actually, in my policies, tell you that on university holidays or on Fridays, it may be the next business day before you hear from me. Chances are you're going to hear from me sooner just because the technology's in my hand and it's really easy for me to respond. But I do try to gauge myself and think, is this an emergency? Is this something I should hold off on? Should I wait? Because there is an important thing called work-life balance, and online learning, online business, online whatever has a tendency to forget that we're humans and that balance is important.
Yeah, and I think we as students, that barrier is removed, and we tend to forget that. Learners do too. I remember you had a family emergency during one of your classes, and got this great, just very candid, hey, just letting you know, this is what's going on in my life this week. Normally I'd respond to you. It's probably not going to happen this week, but here's your marching orders. And that was probably the one time that, I needed to hear from you because I got all the information that I needed, and we were able to kind of march forward with really clear expectations. And, just kind of having that empathetic, pattern of communication, like those automated messages and reminders that go out every week. It's all pretty prescriptive. You just you have to kind of have the literacy to know what you're capable of, I think. And so often professors, are reacting because that's how they use technology in their normal everyday lives. So it does take a little bit of that elevated literacy just to be able to think outside the box to save yourself the calories that it's going to take of you treating it like a normal classroom setting, because it's not that. emulating a classroom setting where it's beneficial and treating it as the online 24-hour a day accessibility piece whenever it can be dangerous not to.
The other thing that I would also say or add to that from a faculty or teacher perspective is that a lot of folks initially come into the concept of, oh, this will be easy. I throw everything online and they just do it. I will be 100% honest with you. It is much more difficult to design an effective online course than it would be for me to walk into a classroom and know what I'm talking about. And so to really think about that design process, to really consider all of the elements, anytime a faculty member or a teacher is effectively designing an online course, it should be much harder than just walking into the classroom and delivering those lectures and having those conversations.
It's a lot harder on the front end for sure, right? 'Cause
Absolutely.
you have to have all that figured out, and then the real-time feedback that you're getting from students is really a lot of the times there's not a lot you can do iteratively until the next time you teach it. There's ways you can respond, but you're sort of a small mistake when setting up your course, you're going to feel the weight of that because each student's going to start messaging you or whatever it is about that one thing that, oh yeah, I forgot to include that or whatever. That seems to be the pattern that teachers run into.
It does, and it depends on the issue that you come up with. I can give you an actual example of that. When I first launched this program, we do discussion boards, and we have initial thoughts and final responses. The system is limited in that it doesn't allow you to set up multiple due dates. Well, students were struggling, and it was really my proactive students, my type A personalities, saying, hey, nobody's posted yet. I'm not going to wait till midnight to be able to respond to this person. So we looked for a workaround so that we could offer 2 due dates. So everybody posts their initial thoughts by this day, and then you have until this time to respond to your classmates. So instructional designers do have to look at the technology limitations, and think outside of the box sometimes to resolve problems when systems and things weren't designed to do what you would like them to.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying our conversation with Dr. Lindsey about instructional design. I just want to take a quick break and encourage you to visit una.edu/online. That's where you're going to learn about all of our online programming. At UNA, we have great teachers like Dr. Lindsey who are on our campus working every day with students to help them achieve their goals. And so we want to encourage you to visit una.edu/online to learn more about all of those programs. You can talk with our recruiters, our program coordinators, get in contact with us, and we'll point you in the right direction. And if you wanted to also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X formerly known as Twitter, LinkedIn, and here on YouTube, please do that as well. And we'll get back to our conversation with Dr. Lindsey around instructional design. So where are we now with instructional design? Like, what is your hope for this program? Because it's just a few years old, it's relatively new in the spectrum of the university. We have programs that are decades and decades old. What is your hope for the evolution of this program, not just in terms of enrollment and growth and of course all those things, but the direction that it goes in the future?
One of my favorite things about teaching in the program is that we're consistently asking students what went well in our classes and what needs improvement, and we are consistently looking at what's happening around us in order to be on the cusp of the next thing. So while design on the front end is usually heavy, in our program we're designing on the front end every semester, if you will. We're consistently changing classes, changing how things work. And so for me, staying ahead for the marketplace, ensuring that we are offering the best possible experience to our students with what's out there, what they need to know in order to be successful in the workplace, is probably what we look to the most. Dr. Howell, my co-teacher, and I are consistently, we'll see something and send each other, oh, we need to look into this, or have you heard about this new thing? Is this something we need to investigate and see about putting into our classes? So,
what's an example of that? Because instructional design is so multifaceted. So what would it take for a piece of technology or a new conversation that would emerge for you to see, like, ooh, that's something that we need to integrate?
I guess one of my favorite examples and I've forgotten her name right now.
That happens.
Um, yeah, it's I'm drawing a blank, and I see her all the time on social media. Looking at what one of the areas I would like to look at is sustainable life skills for students with disabilities.
Mm.
I think several universities do have programs that deal with this type of content. And I have a student who has some disabilities and has children with disabilities that is very interested in this particular area. And when he started mentioning that to me, I was like, we don't have that program. There are individuals with disabilities that could attend college, could do different
Mm-hmm.
things with minor adjustments
Mm-hmm.
to how they learn or how they integrate. And uh, one, she's a famous little TikTok star. She's young. She has. Um, they actually said she would never speak, and she actually speaks in a very deep voice now. But her parents created a t-shirt shop, if you will, and so they've taught her and people like her how to work in that shop by accommodating their learning.
Right.
So little things like job aids or things like that that we develop as instructional designers
Mm-hmm.
have been incorporated that they've just learned from their children and how to make their children successful. I would really like to see our field of instructional design take a heavy interest in those types
Mm-hmm.
of things and offer opportunities, whether it be to parents or the students themselves, to allow them that independence of living on their own, of doing all of those traditional tasks that we take for granted, or even tasks inside of the job place, and make that functional for them to be very successful.
I feel like so much of UNA's programming in general, and this is just after I've talked to so many professors, I work with so many different program coordinators. So many of our programs that are like the richest are the most versatile, right? And our commitment to like accessibility and all those things really rings out whenever you see that our most thriving programs and some of our fastest growing that are matching the workplace needs of the world, of course, are these intercessory roles that in society, but in general, but in every workplace, right? Whether it's nursing, occupational therapy, instructional design, it's these very empathetic intercessory roles that sort of help people bridge the gap between what their needs are and what their goals are.
Right.
It really is this universal theme that I'm noticing, and I love that about where we are as a university because we're so well positioned to sort of help people find their place in those roles. We typically think about whenever you ask a kid what they want to be when they grow up, they typically think about sort of these very high top of the funnel sort of roles, rather like a doctor, or I want to be this, or a lawyer or whatever. But there's a million not only places that or positions that happen in between that that position that we sort of typically think of, or whatever the stereotypes of like this ascendant sort of position to be in. There's not all there's it's not a direct correlation between a pedestrian and blank, right? There's all of these very important critical roles that sort of play into that, and that's really where the workforce is growing and becoming more diverse, and that's where the innovations are happening. That's where the needs are emerging, and instructional design seems to really fall into that same category of, it's not just you're on your way to get to kind of it's a calling in and of itself, because it's so needed, and like I said, intercessory to helping
Absolutely.
people meet needs. And so I think, yeah, disability support, and helping people, helping instructors adapt, curriculum or whatever that looks like for people with disabilities is a shining example of that. And we had an entire class in this program that was based around accessibility, and I got humbled really quickly because I had to make a course that I thought was kind of following those guidelines, and there was just a million little things that I wasn't considering when I was developing my course and my content. That was like, well, you got to be careful with this, and you got to, like, I had my own entire module that I had designed, picked apart by a peer, And I mean, it took me a long time to correct all those mistakes because unless you're in that role, it's a little hard to empathize with sometimes. So those guidelines and those things are really helpful. But empathy is really the target. Empathy is what's going to help you, consider how anybody would receive this, no matter where they are, sort of in their whatever disabilities they might have. So.
And I do think that's a fun part of instructional design, whether it's a disability or something else. We're constantly looking at, you're at point A, we need to get you at point B. What are the steps necessary to get you to that point?
Mm-hmm.
And so we look at all of the scaffolding that it might take to get you through to that process. But I had not previously really considered the need for, I don't want to say life coach, but to a certain extent, life coach for individuals with disabilities to ensure that they're absolutely capable of living independently.
Mm-hmm.
Virtual reality is going to be another thing. Artificial intelligence, when we first started seeing some upticks on that, I got tickled that the state of Alabama actually called for a micro credential in AI. And so we have not gotten the results of that yet, but we were asked to apply because we were already teaching so much of the AI. We had established classes for that type of activity. And so it was kind of humbling to see that, hey, they're recognizing a need and we're already meeting that need or trying to meet that need. And so it was a wonderful experience to see that happen.
I think that speaks to just kind of university-wide, like our agility. Like there's a real knack that UNA instructors like yourself, I think, have to be early adopters, to see emerging needs and develop curriculum really quickly, or whatever that entry point may be that we're looking for students, whether not just in the classroom but in the campus experience or whatever it is, or helping other teachers accomplish these things like what you're doing. It's this ability to say, here's a need that's emerging, we need to get ahead of it and be able to do it really quickly. There's just something about part of it's probably our size, kind of being a mid-sized school, but a lot of it, I think, is just sort of the resourcefulness of our instructors. I think it just seems that we're always one step ahead of those kinds of things, which is really cool. Well, this has been a great conversation. I could keep going and asking you about just all of the different outcomes, but I did want to just I did just want to sort of summarize, if you were talking to somebody who wasn't sure what instructional design maybe was, but they might be a good candidate for it and just not realize, who would that person possibly be, and what would you tell them about this degree and about this program?
If you are interested in teaching or training others, this program is in the business of educating those who educate others. So a love of technology, a love of creativity. It does not have to be just analytical. I think instructional design has multifacets. I think you can be analytical in the field. I think you can be creative in the field. I think you can be a outgoing person, or you can I lost the word again. You can actually prefer your individuality and your independence. And so I think it's for anybody. Every job out there has somebody like me in learning and development, in training, potentially in HR. Even companies you don't think about. Amazon has instructional designers.
Sure.
Hospitals. Every field has a role for somebody like me in it. So you're not limited to what you can do with a degree. And if you're creative enough, sometimes you can create a niche nobody knew they needed just by the experience and the knowledge you have.
It's definitely an exciting field because of its diversity and versatility and transferability to like pretty much wherever you want it to go. It makes it hard to pin down, makes it hard to tell people what it is sometimes, because it's like, well, what do you want it to be? But it's an amazing skill set that you can do a whole lot with. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time. This has been really great. And just exciting to be a part of the program myself, and exciting to help promote it. So thanks for letting me do that.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening and for watching, and make sure and come back to us for our next episode of UNA Talks.